Welcome to Virtual Office Hours. What law students need to know about filing taxes this year. Sponsored by the American Bar Association and nonprofit AccessLex Institute. The Virtual Office Hours series connects you with experts to help you thrive as a law student and prepare for life after law school. We're really excited tonight to have Mary Bechler with us. Mary is Regional Director for the Mid-Atlantic at AccessLex Center for Education and Financial Capability. She has worked in financial management, planning, and analytics in higher education for 20 years. She believes understanding a student's money mindset and sharing strategies to promote positive behaviors is key to helping students develop a financial plan and achieve their objectives. Mary, we'll turn things over to you now.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me here tonight. It's a pleasure to be with you all and walk you through what you need to know about tax filing. My goal for the next few minutes is to provide some basic tax information to provide context and framework for you to approach your tax filing for the year. And if you're not familiar with who we are, AccessLex is a nonprofit and we've been around for nearly 40 years. And our mission is to increase the affordability, accessibility, and value of a legal education. And we do that through a number of resources, including our MAX program, which is a personal finance program designed specifically for law students. And MAX includes online materials, webinars, and one-on-one coaching. And our services and support are extended to aspiring law students, all the way through to practicing professionals. So it is available to any of you on the line who are alumni. And our goal is to empower you with the knowledge that you need so that you can make informed financial decisions. And one of the ways we do this is through our Ask Edna platform. So if you're a law student and you don't have an account yet, I encourage you to sign up. It's a free platform. This is where you can access all of our resources and materials. And you can just register and log in at askedna.accesslex.org. And also there are resources for student success and bar success. So please do check it out when you have a chance. And because we're talking about money today, I'm going to read this brief disclaimer. The information provided in this event and other MAX by AccessLex resources is being made available to assist you in developing your personal financial strategy and is not intended as investment, tax, or legal advice. You should consider whether the information is appropriate for your needs and where applicable, seek advice from an appropriate financial advisor. Okay, now let's dive in. So we're going to focus on federal taxes for US citizens and residents for tax purposes. And one of the things to keep in mind is that taxes very much depend upon individual circumstances. So I'm going to provide you with information basically on how taxes work, and then you can apply them to your particular situation. And again, we do offer free financial coaching where we can talk through planning and strategies on how taxes play into your overall financial plan. And I'll give you information on the financial coaching at the end of the session. Okay, so here are some of the basic tax concepts. So to level set, I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So first, the tax system is a pay-as-you-go system. So it's expected that you're paying most of your tax during the year as you earn the income. Now, for most of us, if you work for a corporation or an institution, your company will withhold your taxes from your paycheck. So you're doing that really automatically. But if you are in private practice or you're self-employed, then there is no one withholding your taxes. So you need to pay estimated taxes, and one pays estimated taxes on a quarterly basis. And that's just so you know, again, it's the pay-as-you-go philosophy. Now, there are a number of different kinds of taxes. We're talking about federal taxes today, but there are also state taxes and local or city taxes, depending upon where you live. For example, Philadelphia has city taxes, New York, Portland does. So depending on where you live, there might also be a local tax that you would have to pay. And then another form of taxes are FICA taxes. And you might better know them as Social Security and Medicare. And these taxes total together are 7.65, and they're levied against your earned income. So they're payroll taxes. And just these taxes are also due if you're self-employed. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing about the US tax system is that it is a self-assessment system. And what does that mean? And that means that taxpayers must determine their taxable income, compute their tax liability, and submit their tax returns with any payments due. We don't get billed for our taxes. We figure it out and we actually pay it. And so that's it's a self-assessment. It's our responsibility to do that. And then timing. So the tax year is a calendar year, January 1st through December 31st. And the reason why I mention that is I work often with students, and there's often a mindset of the academic year. So I just want to refocus it to the calendar year. And taxes are due. Tax due date is April 15th. Probably you all know that, but there are a couple of exceptions. So one exception is when April 15th falls on a weekend. And the other exception is Emancipation Day, which is a public holiday in Washington, D.C., and it marks the anniversary of the signing of the Emancipation Act by President Lincoln on April 16th, 1862. And why do I tell you that this year? Because actually they are recognizing Emancipation Day on the 15th, April 15th. So this year taxes are due on the 18th. So a fun fact for you to know. Another key concept in doing taxes are deductions and credits. And this is probably what most people are interested in. So I'll explain each of those. So a deduction is a reduction in the amount of income that is subject to tax. And there are two types of deductions to choose from. One is the standard deduction, and that is a set amount of income that is not subject to tax. So for 2021, the standard deduction for a single independent person is $12,550. The other deduction is an itemized deduction. And this is probably what you've heard about. And this is where you actually go through and you itemize different expenses, like medical expenses to the extent they're over 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, or charitable contributions, mortgage interest, property taxes. Those that you itemize, you add all those expenses up. And if they are greater than $12,550, well, then you go the itemized route. Otherwise, you choose the standard deduction route. And just to let you know that nearly 90% of taxpayers end up claiming the standard deduction. So there are not that many that actually end up doing the itemized. And basically, in general, it's for people who own a home and have high mortgage interest rates or property taxes that end up taking the itemized deduction. Okay, now let's talk about credits. So credits are more valuable than deductions. And that is because a credit is a dollar for dollar reduction in the amount of tax that you have to pay. So I said that the deductions actually just reduce your taxable income, and that's where you figure out how much tax you have to pay based on that. Once you calculate your taxes due, a credit just goes dollar for dollar against what you have to pay. So they're more valuable. And some examples of the credits, so these are things that you are looking out for, the lifetime learning credit, the child tax credit, or the child care tax credit, which are relevant if one has a family. Now, what are some of the things you should be aware of as a student? So first, I'm going to talk about the lifetime learning credit. And so the lifetime learning credit is where you get to take it's up to a maximum of $2,000. And it's 20% of the first $10,000 of qualified education expenses. So there are three things that you need to meet in order to get the lifetime learning credit. One is you must have qualified education expenses. So what are those? That's tuition and fees required for enrollment or attendance. So basically your tuition bill, if you're paying it, generally those are considered your qualified education expenses. You must be enrolled at an eligible educational institution, and the payment must be for yourself, your spouse, or dependent. It must be for the return that you're filing. So if those three things are true, then you can claim up to $2,000 on your return. And I will mention that this credit, like many other credits, is phased out at certain income levels. So you always have to look at that. Now, another thing that may be very interesting for students is the student loan interest. Okay, so student loan interest is an above the line deduction. Now, remember I said that we really only have the two deductions, the standard and the itemized. There are a few in addition to those that they are deductions, and they say that they're above the line because you can claim those in addition to the standard deduction. And so student loan interest is one of those. And so the student loan interest deduction is up to $2,500 for 2021. Now, many of you will not have this expense in 2021 because you're either in school or your federal loan interest was paused, so you weren't making payments. But there may be some of you who had private loans, private student loans, or decided to make some payments to pay down your principal or your interest that you before the fate that had to be started back up again. So if you did make those payments, those could be deducted on your income tax return. And again, as with other credits, this one is also subject to an income threshold. And then finally, I do want to mention self-employment income. And I mention that only because a lot of students, we have have a side hustle and they're doing, other things. So this is something to be aware of, and also to note that with your self-employment income, there are obligations to pay the self-employment tax, which is the FICA tax. So what's different for 2021? So we have the stimulus payments. So we had those last year for 2020. We had our third payment in March of 2021 of $1,400. Good news, again, not taxable. So you don't actually have to do anything about it. But so we have those stimulus payments. Child tax credit payments. These are part of the American Rescue Plan. They increased those payments and changed the payout. So that's relevant for anyone who has children. Charitable deductions. Okay, so I'm going to give you another exception. It is also for 2020 and 2021. They had a limited charitable deduction that they considered an above the line deduction. So this was, in 2020, the IRS, our nation's charities are struggling to help, all the people struggling with COVID. And we want to make sure that people have an incentive to donate. So again, usually the charitable contributions, the only way you get to take them is if you itemize. And remember, nearly 90% of the country taxpayers don't itemize. So they gave for 2020, they said you could deduct up to $300 in charitable contributions to a bona fide charity, as long as it was not donated goods. And you could deduct that in addition to the standard deduction. So this year, the same thing, although they said 2020, it was per tax return. This year, it's per person. So if you're filing jointly, you can deduct up to $600. So they did one better this year. And then finally, I did want to note, some of you may be familiar with a tuition and fees deduction that was discontinued. So that is no longer available. Do I need to file? That is probably what you're wondering. Okay, so there is an IRS requirement to file taxes, and it's based upon a minimum amount, and that amount also depends upon your filing status and your age. So if you're single filing status and you're under the age of 65 and your income is below $12,550, remember that was the standard deduction amount, then generally you do not need to file a tax return. And this is true as long as you don't have another type of income that requires you to file a return for other reasons. So what might that be? Let's say you have unearned income, such as interest, dividends, or capital gains. If you have unearned income greater than $1,100, then you have to file taxes. If you had a side hustle, you had a gig work that you're doing, you would be required to pay the self-employment tax. So then you would have to file taxes to do that. And it may be, so I also at this point want to bring up scholarship income, because that also may be something you're not thinking about when you are thinking about your overall income. So scholarship income, scholarship and fellowship income comes in two flavors. One is qualified, and qualified fellowship or scholarship is not taxable. And qualified means that you're paying tuition and fees, you got received fellowship or scholarship to cover tuition and fees required for enrollment for your course of, or resources that you needed for your course of instruction. And you must be a candidate for a degree. So then they're considered qualified and they're non-taxable. Now, let's say you did receive a scholarship or fellowship to help pay for living expenses. Those are considered non-qualified, and those may be taxable, and you would report those on your tax return. So that's the difference between, if you ask, is my scholarship or fellowship taxable, you first need to know whether they were for tuition and fees and required expenses, or were they for other expenses, and that would tell you whether they were taxable or not. So I know all of this sounds really confusing. So just actually the IRS website has a tool that they can tell, that they walk you through, they ask you a bunch of questions, and then they'll let you know whether or not you have to file a tax return or not. So you can always go there and go through that online tool to help you find that out. So how to start. So putting together the 1040, which is the tax form that you'll figure is like a puzzle. So you've got to get your W-2s, which you'll receive those for any income that you've earned. 1098-T, you'll get that from your institution. If you paid qualified, tuition or fees, you'll get a 1098-T. You'll receive a 1098-E if you paid student loan interest. And then there are a bunch of 1099 forms. You've got the interest for dividends or for miscellaneous income. So gather all of those papers together. And so actually what I do is whenever I get any paperwork, I stick it all in a folder. And if I make a charitable contribution during the year, I take a copy of it and I put it in the folder. And then when tax time comes out, I pull it all out. You can do the same thing with a virtual electronic folder. Make copies and copy it all into one folder so that you have it when tax time comes. And one of the reasons you might really want to put it all in one folder is, let's say you switch jobs and your W-2 is online and you need access to it. So you may want to make a copy of that so you have it all together. And now where can, I feel like I need help. Where can I get help? So or do it yourself. So one is buying a tax software program. You can also go to a tax professional. But there's also another opportunity. The IRS sponsors a volunteer income tax assistance program. It's called VITA. And these are volunteers who actually help low to moderate income people file their taxes. And they actually help walk them through their taxes and do it together. And so if you have income under $58,000 or less, you are eligible for these VITA services. So where are they? And it depends on your town or where you live, but I know I live in Princeton, New Jersey, and our public library, they have a VITA resource there, and they are there every Monday, starting February 1st, all the way through the middle of April. And you can make an appointment, you go there, and they actually just walk you through your tax returns. So depending on where you live, there might be a VITA resource close to you. And then you can also, if you don't, if some of these tax programs can be expensive, there are also, you can file your taxes for free on the IRS website. And if your income is less than $73,000, then they actually, you go to IRS Free File and you can actually use a tax software program that walks you through. And so that would be eligible for you as well. So here are some of the resources that I talked about, and I do want to call your attention to Publication 970. This is particularly for students because these are tax benefits for education. So they will really walk through some like the lifetime learning credit, the student loan interest. So it will really walk you through some of that. So that's a great resource for you to have. And then we have Max Coaching, and this is the service that I mentioned that we provide. And as part of the Max program, you have access to free coaching, 30-minute phone call. You can use it as many times as you need it. We're not going to tell you what to do, but we're going to educate you the best we can. And we'll talk through the pros and cons to help you make the best decision that works for you. And if you're not at a Max participating school, you can also access free financial coaching through Access Connects. And again, it's with an accredited financial counselor, no limit on the number of sessions. It is again free. So please do take advantage of it. We're here to help. And so here I'll leave this. You can make a phone call or you can schedule a meeting, and you can take a picture of that so you have the link of where to get it. And with that, I'll take any questions if you have any. Thank you so much, and good luck with doing your taxes.
Well, thank you, Mary. You answered some of the questions that came up during your presentation. It was filled with such great information. So thank you very much. And we're going to thank everyone for joining us. And thank you to Mary Bechler and the AccessLex Institute. We hope you join us for upcoming virtual office hour programs. So visit abaforlawstudents.com for that full lineup. And we'll be sending everyone the link to the replay and Mary's slides. So thank you and have a good evening.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Be safe, be well.